Listen, we're going to price out burrito bowls in a second from Chipotle, but before we do, let's set this up because we were looking at the article on Politico exposing the Young Republicans group chat, and we wanted to react to what those messages really said. How bad were they, and are you shocked by the contents of the messages? So we'll get into that. But before we do, of course, this is Nuance. I'm Mike Scala. I'm an attorney, the chair of Queens Defenders, the counsel to the Queens Link, a Queens County community. See, I can't even say everything without stumbling. I got so many. I got to get this right, Jay.
AKAs. You got all the
Yeah,
AKAs.
yeah. The Queens County Committeeman, I should
Let's
say.
go.
And yes, and a hip hop artist joined as
No,
always.
no. Raucous Records artist. Come on, let's
Oh,
go.
okay, we're
Come
doing
on.
the whole resume. Okay, from a raucous artist. Yes, the album Mike Scholar is out on streaming platforms, surpassing 150,000 streams. We're doing it.
Nice.
Joined as always by Jay Carter, himself a hip hop artist and the chair of BLM Tokyo. What's up, Jay? What's up, Timid, as you're also known?
All
We
right.
started talking about Chipotle. I guess we're hungry, as what it is. We're hungry.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to know about the pricing of Chipotle because I recently ordered, I Uber Eats, right? We use that as a verb now. I Uber Eats two items from Chipotle, one of which was a burrito and one was a burrito bowl, right? Nothing else, no drinks. I had the drinks at home, right? Just those two things. And by the way, this Chipotle is close. It's right on Cross Bay here. You know, it's walking distance. In fact, I probably should be walking there, right, to get my exercise in if I'm going to be buying Chipotle anyway. But
Right.
nonetheless, I Uber Eats it that night, and with the fees and everything, it came to over $50 just for those two
That's
things.
ridiculous. That's
It is pretty.
ridiculous.
It's pretty outrageous, right? Now, I did want to see like if I just went into the store and I
It's
got.
offensive, bro. It's offensive.
It is pretty offensive. Yeah, as I sometimes say in my law profession, it strikes me as unconstitutional. But
I agree.
all jokes aside, I do want to see if I go into the store and just order a burrito bowl here, how much would it cost? What do you think?
I would listen. I was just in Tokyo and I bought a Chipotle-sized burrito. Um, and that was $13.
You said Chipotle size, though, not an actual Chipotle, right?
No, there's no Chipotle out here, but there was the size, like one of them, like I said, the size about like your head, them thick boys.
Right,
Um,
right. By the way,
yeah.
this is an aside. One of the reasons why I don't like eating outside is because I have some PTSD from when I was in law school and I was working at the teachers union in downtown Manhattan, right? My colleagues in the office would always want to go to Chipotle for lunch and they always wanted to eat it outside. Now they would go and they would get their burritos and they would sit on a bench looking at the Statue of Liberty in Battery Park, right? And it was like, oh, such a nice day out. It's picturesque, right? Let's enjoy our Chipotle while watching the Statue of Liberty. I don't know how they did it. You know, I'm in a suit. I'm trying to eat this burrito. It's exploding everywhere. I'm ruining the suit. I got guacamole on my tie. You know what I mean? They are so casual. I still picture this in my head, like holding it in their hand, just kind of and nothing is coming out. Like it's being contained. I don't know how they're doing it. I don't know how they're doing it, but
Gotta have skills, bro.
from then on, I was like, listen, I am not eating outside if I can avoid it. It's just too messy. It's not enjoyable. There's always bees buzzing in your ear and stuff like that. Like it's just, what are you doing? What are you doing? Your napkins are blowing everywhere from the wind, especially when you're by the water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Napkins flying everywhere. It's not a fun experience. I'd rather be indoors and enjoy my food casually, you know, luxuriously. And so, yeah, I always think back to that and just like how smug they were. I think they had their legs crossed, just, you know, doing a burrito. I could never do that. You know what I mean? I eat it and it's like beans go flying into the water. So I don't know.
No, I'm with you. Eating outside is not as cracked up as it is like people make it out to be. It's they, images, movies, and all they make it look like it's like so like either romantic or they
All right.
make it look like it's so like luxurious. Like, nah, the wind is blowing, the flies are
Yeah.
buzzing. Like it's
Yeah.
not it's
Right.
not cool.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so I stopped getting burritos from Chipotle altogether after that. I just get the burrito bowl now because it's going to fall apart anyway. That's how I figure it. So why even subject myself to the extra carbs if I don't need them? Just get the
Mm.
bowl. That's what I like. You know, the stuff that goes inside the burrito. So I'm on the site right now. it says popular lifestyle bowl. What's a lifestyle bowl from Chipotle? I
I
never
don't
heard
know.
of this. So that's one of the items, but it's the burrito bowl. That's the main one. It's the one I usually get, the burrito bowl. So let's see. If I order it now, we're really digressing here. We want to talk about this Young Republicans group chat, and now we're on burritos, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to figure things out. So why do they give me so many options? I just want a price. Can you just price this out? Build your own, burrito bowl order. Now this is order, so I don't know if the prices are different online. Okay, but here's a little bit of an idea. So if you pick carne asada beef, it's
Mhm.
15 bucks. Steak, 14 bucks. That's
Okay.
that's before adding guacamole, which is extra.
Okay, but that's okay.
Guacamole is
So
$3 extra. See there, that's how they get you. Because I get the guacamole, so that's gonna add
okay,
three
so if
bucks.
you walk
Yeah,
in and get it, it's about 15 bucks just for the burrito.
bowl for the burrito bowl,
Okay, for
plus
the
three
burrito
bucks
bowl.
extra for guacamole plus tax. Right. So let's see, 15. Yeah, so it's gonna be like 20 bucks. All said and done, it'll be about 20 bucks
With extras and all that, yeah.
just with the
I
guacamole. That's
still
not having chips because they always ask you want the chips. You get the chips, obviously that's an extra cost. Drink, obviously an extra cost, right? So yeah, I mean,
that's still
it makes
crazy.
sense, right? I ordered those two things and it was 50 bucks with fees from Uber Eats. But even if you're in the store, you'd be spending at least 20 bucks most likely.
That's still un-American. I'm sorry. It shouldn't be that much.
Well, here we are. Here we are, Jay. Speaking of
Yeah.
un-American, right? Like the segue,
Yeah, I like it.
the group chat. Now, I saw stories about this and I hadn't seen the actual messages. So I wanted to wait to react live on Nuance. What did the messages actually say, right? So supposedly this was from a Telegram chat, right? The app Telegram, and it was a national chat of sorts, right? There were people from, was it various young Republican clubs throughout the country
Yeah.
partaking in this? Okay. But
Yeah.
it has some kind of nexus to New York as well, right? Did someone from New York start the chat? Is that how it came about?
I think initially someone from New York started it, and then of course there were people, factions from New York that were participating in it.
Sure. Okay. Because I know part of the fallout was the Young Republicans chapter was disbanded, or the GOP leadership came down and said that you guys are no longer part of the club, basically.
Yeah, I saw that. And you know what? Listen, we're often quite critical of Republicans, even when we're talking in nuance, but I will give the GOP of New York a little props on that for denouncing that type of speech and that type of messaging and basically disbanding that group. So I have to give them some props on that.
Yeah, it was funny to me that they said you can't even use the word Republican anymore. It's like, well, they're probably registered as Republicans. What do you mean they can't use the word? But I get it. They were trying to be as hard as they could to show that they weren't going
Right.
to tolerate this.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, I listen. I'm in total agreement. I think it should not be tolerated. They should anyone should go after them like that. Like, no, you're not with us. And this is think about it. Like before the days now, if you go back to like the early 2000s or the 90s, if this would have come out then, like everyone would have denounced it. There wouldn't have been anyone, even in the national level of the GOP, defending people making these Hitler, I love Hitler types of remarks. It would have
Mm.
been denounced by everyone. But these days, it's more of a fight. You know, JD Vance, the vice president, is basically kind of saying okay to some of the stuff, basically saying, "Oh, well, they're all just young. It's not that big of a deal." But yeah, they're 25 to 35, and that's not even the point. It's the fact
Isn't
that
that, yeah, isn't that a sad state of affairs? And why do you think that is? Why do you think we're now at a place where some people feel they can't even denounce hatred and bigotry?
yeah, well, because look at the what's been introduced into our discourse since Donald Trump took center stage. His previous administration, this administration, his runs in between. There's just so much of this type of negativity that has become normalized, and so many people who do believe in these things have become elevated
Hmm.
that there's really no penalty to embracing this type of ideology.
Well, see, I think I would go even further and say the problem is more so that there is a penalty for not embracing or not tolerating that ideology, right?
Sure. Because yeah, that the administration that they have so much power, their movement has so much power that they can demonize you for not embracing it. And it's led our discourse to this area that we're at. Like, could you
It
could you
reminds,
imagine even George W. Bush
right.
or any of them, like, you know what I
I
mean?
gotta say, yeah, one thing about the Bush family, as hard as we were on them, they do seem to have a good record with respecting immigrants, at least being comment. You could maybe debate the policy a little bit, but at least in
Right.
terms of their approach and their sensitivity, right? They seemed like they weren't so hateful in that regard.
Yeah. But think about it, like even like John McCain or what was the I mean even Boehner, like these are
Yeah.
these guys, like do you think none of these guys would have supported this messaging then? They would have all come out and be like, yeah, this is detestable. We're not with
Yeah.
this.
It reminds me of when Nikki Haley was running for president
Mm,
and she refused to say that slavery was a cause of the Civil War.
right.
And it seemed like she was afraid, like if she said that, she would have lost votes in her base.
And she would have. Yeah, she
So
definitely would have.
is that the climate that we find ourselves in now, right? Like you mentioned Vance as an example, but if someone were to come out and denounce this, would there be a concern that they would lose voters in their base, or maybe even donors who are backing them up? You think that's what it is? Like they're just being propped up by people who not only agree with this kind of messaging, but insist that you don't denounce it.
I think so. I think there's definitely a big element to that.
So yeah, let's actually look at some of this message because I know we just hinted at some of the contents. You
Right.
mentioned what Nazi terminology, things of that sort.
Yeah, so Politico is the one that apparently broke this story. And it was thousands of pages of a Telegram chat from this group called Leaders of Young Republicans or something like that. Um, and yeah, that like all of the chat stuff has not been released, but Politico did post a few messages. Like one put, um, "Great, I love Hitler." Um, and someone else was referring to black people and said they love the watermelon people. Um,
I see one here that says "stay in the closet." This
yeah,
girl is fully, and they use the R word. Uh, right in the middle, it says, "If we ever had a leak of this chat, we would be cooked for real, for real." So at least they're
right.
self-aware of that.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing. They
Someone
put
said
some,
here, "You're giving nationals too much credit and expecting the Jew to be honest." Ooh.
yeah. So
Now,
it would
a
be
lot of the context isn't here, so you don't know
right,
what the whole conversation was. But nonetheless, you don't need a lot of context to see that these are nasty messages.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Um, there's a couple of, it seems like fuller chats here. Um, so let's
I
look
see
at some
that.
of these off rip, and then we can go into the article. There's at least
Mhm.
one of the longer threads.
Okay.
Yeah,
I see that one when you scroll down a little bit where it says everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. That one.
yeah, yeah,
Now, yeah, I don't know what they're talking about here. Everyone that votes no on what, but I guess that's somewhat besides the point.
yeah. It's kind of hard to tell to get that specific, but yeah, like you said, I think it's beside the point in many
It is.
cases.
I just want to make sure that it isn't someone expressing fear that they're going to be attacked. You know what I mean? Like
What do you
that.
mean?
Well, that statement, everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. That could be read a couple of ways, right? Number one is they're advocating that someone goes to the gas chamber, which is horrible, right? Or the other way that that could be is that they're afraid that they're going to be attacked if they vote no.
I'm not following on that part.
Like if you say, let's say you're at work and you say something like, everyone who stands up to the boss is going to get killed. That could be
Right.
read two different ways. One is, I'm afraid I'm going to be killed or subjected to some kind of harm, right, or foul play against me if I do this. Or it could be read as advocating that people should be subjected to that if they do it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So, like, when it just starts off, everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. Is that person saying, like, if we vote no, they're going to come down on us? Like, we're afraid of being attacked? Or are they saying, we think people who don't support this should be attacked?
Yeah, I'm not completely following that either.
Really? Like, if you were to
Yeah.
say at work, everyone who stands up to the boss is going to get killed,
Right.
that can be taken two different ways, right?
I mean, the two ways I'm thinking is literally and figuratively.
Right. But I'm talking about the intent behind it. Because I think this is, I hope at least for their sake, this is meant to be figurative, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, are they advocating for people to be sent to the gas chamber or whatever stupid stuff they're saying? Or are they saying, like, if we take this stand, they're going to send us to the gas chamber?
Wouldn't that be kind of the same thing? Because it's just whether they're talking about themselves or talking about someone else, but it's still kind of the same direction.
Kinda, but it's not really the same direction, because on the one hand they're advocating for it, and on the other hand they're afraid that it's going to happen to them, right? So, like, for example,
I
if
think okay, I
if
think I see what
if
you mean.
if they were saying that their bosses or whoever wants them to vote this way are Nazis or Nazi like, right?
Hmm.
And let's say there was someone who was saying they all should vote for this initiative, and
Mm.
they were saying, oh, that person, like, they're like Hitler, like they they're fascist, they're this, they're that. I can see that someone said, well, if we vote no, we're getting the gas chamber. Not an appropriate thing to say still, but that's a little bit different still, I think, than calling for other people to get the gas chamber, right?
It could be.
I think it's different.
Yeah.
Neither one is something that you should say, let's be clear, but it's
Yeah,
still,
yeah, we're
right?
not
You're
I'm not
still, yeah, you're not saying that, you're not condoning it, but I just think that context would provide a little bit more of what's really going on here, right? And I think the more I look at this, that they're actually the ones who want to go on the offensive. They're not afraid that they're going to be subjected to the offense, right?
hmm. Okay, so let's
Because you can see that, just as an example. You could definitely see a Democrat, for example, saying something like that in regards to Trump, right? Like, if we don't go along with what Trump wants, we're getting the gas chamber, because people already compare him to
right.
Nazis and that kind of,
Yeah,
right?
sure,
You see someone
sure.
saying something like that. And again, it
Sure.
doesn't mean that it's a right, a good thing to say, but
Right.
that's still a little bit different, I think, than saying that someone else should get the gas chamber.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. One is yeah, more metaphorical. One's more like a directive, like type of thing.
Yeah. Right. One is offensive, one is defensive, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
So, but it looks like the more you read it, because if someone says, let's see, if they vote for us, why would they be gassed? When do we bring that side out? I'm going to create some of the greatest physiological torture methods known to man, someone says. We only want true believers. Okay. So I don't know. This is looks like some crazy stuff. Can we fix the showers? Gas chambers don't fit the Hitler aesthetic. And then people are laughing and hearting that one. I'm ready to watch people burn now, someone says. We got to pretend we like them. Hey, come on in, take a now nice shower and relax. Boom, they're dead. Okay. So that answers my question, right? The more you read it, they're not saying they're afraid someone's going to subject them to this. They're actually suggesting they subject other people to it.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. And now you got here the one who said, I'm ready to watch people burn now. That message was allegedly written by New York's national committee member. So
Okay. Yeah, that's no bueno.
I don't understand that. It's weird, right? Isn't that a weird exchange? Is that how people talk? Like, I've never in my life been around people who talk that way.
I mean, I don't think either was spend too much time in like, racist cabals. I
Right.
mean,
That's really what they're saying. And how indicative do you think this is of larger Republican circles, I guess?
um, these days, uh, I think this is very indicative. Uh, yeah, I don't think it's even being hidden these days. Like they're not outright publishing it, but I think, yeah, I would not be shocked that this type of conversation is happening. I mean, it's no secret that the Republicans have always had a racist vein in their party and in their ideology. Even you go back to what was it? Colin Powell's chief of staff, white man, had said
Mm,
that there's a big racist faction in
sure.
his party. Right? This was back in what, before 2010,
Yeah. Yeah. Early 2000s.
So for this to exist within that party is not surprising, and for it to be elevated given the administration and the rhetoric we've been subjected to over the past 15 years, I you know I can see it being crazy like this.
Yeah. It's hard for me to even follow, right? Like I'm reading it. I'm like, why are they even saying these things? You know what I mean? Like I don't even understand. Is that
I
supposed
think
to be
part of
funny?
that is probably
Is that their
also,
humor? Their attempt at humor?
I think there could be some of that, but it also, we're kind of at a disadvantage because, like you said, there's not a lot of context here. Like the full chat isn't being
Hmm.
posted,
Right.
right? Excerpts are being posted, and I don't think the all of the pages have been released yet, if they are going to be. So that makes it kind of,
There's
you
been
know where,
thousands, apparently thousands of messages in this chat.
right? Yeah. So, um, there was another message here that said, "I'd go to the zoo if I wanted to watch monkey play ball."
No, what is that in reference to? Like a
It's
basketball game or
clearly
something? Or I don't, you know, I don't,
clearly a reference to black people, but
right.
whether
Evidently.
basketball,
But
football,
then
I don't
there's
know.
some Indian hatred here as well, if you scroll further down.
Yeah, nobody was spared here.
Right, right.
No,
And so I guess
nobody.
it is somewhat fitting that they are comparing themselves to Hitler because that was his MO, right? Like no one was spared except people who look like him.
Yeah, no one was spared. And you know what's really kind of odd about the Hitler thing? One of the things was
Oh, that
like
he had
this, that Aryan ideal was the blonde-haired blue eyes, yet Hitler was neither.
he wasn't.
Yeah.
So okay. Let's see. It says here, and again, this was exposed by Politico. It says someone who was a mutual friend of someone in the chat, quote, dated this very obese Indian woman for a period of time, end quote. Then someone responded the woman was not Indian. And then, ooh, a state senator from Vermont and the head of the Vermont Young Republicans replied, she just didn't bathe often. So she wasn't Indian, she just didn't bathe often.
Dang.
So, yeah, that's crazy for a natural elected official, right? A state
Right.
senator to be
Yeah.
saying something like this. That's, yeah, that's really crazy.
Now
Then
apparently,
I
oh, go
was
ahead.
no, I was going to say it also gets into this Charlie Kirk stuff, right?
Yeah.
Where very specifically, this same state, oh no, not the, I'm sorry, not the state senator, someone else who was replying to state senator now, but someone else in the chat. This is Giunta, who I guess what was one of the heads, one of the leaders, Giunta.
Yeah, Giunta. I
Yeah,
think it was Italian.
I guess so. He said, if your pilot is a she and she looks 10 shades darker than someone from Sicily, just end it there. Scream the no word. Now, that is what Charlie Kirk was saying, not in those words, but
Right.
he said that if his pilot was black, he was afraid to fly on a plane, right?
Right. He would be questioning their qualifications or something like that.
Yeah, and how I don't know how people are, no pun intended, but letting something like that fly, right? Like you might have criticisms about DEI or whatever, but you have to know, you should know that to become a pilot is not easy. You know what I mean? Like to go through all that training and certification, like they don't let just anyone fly a plane. Like you got to know what the hell you're doing. To go, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
but
So, like
that's
they don't even they don't recognize that, or they don't care, or you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to figure this out. Are people
no.
saying this type of thing uninformed, or are they just trying to be funny but they know better, or they're just being purposely hateful even though they're not really that stupid. It's just hate. Like I don't know like what exactly that is.
No, they're purposefully hateful. And it's not even the fact about the hours required to become a pilot. This is where they think this DEI happens, that people who don't complete the necessary training just get
Mm.
slid into those places because they're a woman, because they're a minority, because they're gay or something like that.
So you
So
think that a lot of them actually do believe that?
yeah, they believe that. They absolutely believe that.
Wow.
They absolutely believe that. I mean, look at look at the stuff they thought Kamala was in her position as DEI. They thought, all of these things are DEI when the real DEI is actually happening in their camp. None of the people on Trump's administration are qualified for the positions. They were just put in for yeah, it's crazy. It's kind it's
So what does that say? Right? It's Does this go back to us just being in different spheres where some people just won't engage with facts
yeah.
and they really
Yeah.
believe the misinformation, right? It isn't only a matter of them deliberately distorting the truth. They really believe some of this stuff, and that's why they think in their minds they're justified in saying it because they think it's true.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they've been allowed to think it's true because one, the administration and the spokesperson for that administration, Trump himself. Two, even outside of office, this was perpetuated throughout all of media, right? As media covered everything that Trump said. Then you've got the extreme members of the Republican Party that are in Congress that are out there saying these things, Marjorie Taylor Greene and what's the other one we just Laura Loomer or whatever it was or any of
Boebert,
these, yeah, all of these people saying these type of extreme things, and then you get your street level, right, or your local representatives that are following uh, that example and saying the same type of stuff. So people are believing it. They definitely believe it. Before that wouldn't have type of stuff wouldn't have flew before. It would have been checked. Remember when I think it was even Trump that started it during the Obama election when him and McCain were going head to head and they kept trying to paint Obama as a Muslim, and there was that moment where even though McCain and Obama were opposition, and that woman stood up and said, "Well, I can't vote for him because he's a Muslim," and McCain shut it down. This was the guy that he was going against, and he said, "Listen, no, ma'am, he's not a Muslim. He's a family man. He's just a guy that has a
yes,
different point of view than I do."
but I always said as much props as he got for that, while it might have been the right thing to say at the time, I think he got too much credit because number one, his campaign really started that line of attack, if you recall, right? He
Wasn't that? I think that
okayed.
was Trump, though.
No, this is before Trump.
No, that was from the whole birther thing and all of that. That was before Trump started running.
I believe the birtherism. No, I know it's before he started running, but I think that started after Obama got elected, didn't it?
The
The
what the
birtherism stuff.
No, no, no.
We can look up the
We
timeline of
can
that,
look
but
it
I
up.
know that
Yeah.
it was McCain's campaign that put on commercials saying that Obama was palling around with terrorists and that
Right.
he started his career in Bill Ayer's living room, who was a domestic
Right.
terrorist. And what was happening was his campaign was saying that he had to hit Obama harder on some of that
Right.
messaging because he was losing, right? And he had to do something to desperately gain ground. And McCain was hesitant to put some of that negative, nasty rhetoric out there, but he did ultimately agree to
Right.
allow his campaign, really through Sarah Palin and even some of the ads they put out, to compare
Right.
Obama to a terrorist and say, well, we're not going to outright call him a radical Muslim if that's what you're thinking, but we are saying that he hangs out with terrorists, wink, wink. So it's kind of like a dog whistle kind of thing. And
Right. Right. Right.
it was his own campaign that kind of manufactured that, right? And maybe there's some other elements that were happening too, but they did kind of fan those flames in a way by doing that. The other thing that I didn't like about those remarks that McCain made was, and listen, it was on the spot. So sometimes you don't say things the most artfully, right, in the spur of the moment. But the
Sure.
woman at the rally was saying that she doesn't trust him because he's an Arab, right? And he responded, "No, ma'am, he's not. He's a good family man." Now, doesn't
And
that
that's
kind of
good
imply
Muslim.
that being an Arab means you can't be a good family man?
Yeah, it could. It definitely could.
I mean, there was nothing in there about, and by the way, even if he was an Arab, that's no reason not to vote for him.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't that.
Yeah.
It was no, no, no. Don't worry. He's a Christian like I am. You know what I mean? It was that kind of thing. So, like I
Right.
said, I understand it. He kind of cooled things down a little bit by saying that, but
Right.
I never let him entirely off the hook either because he was
Oh
kind of
no.
responsible. He was kind of responsible in his own way for that even happening. You know what I mean?
Right. I'm just the point there, I think, is like, can you imagine that happening today? I don't think that would.
Right.
Because, you know, people have been allowed to believe these things and they've been actively encouraged to believe these things. And then you find one thing with social media is it will amplify whatever it is that you believe. So if you believe something, whether it's true or it's not true, you can find a tribe of people on social media that believe that same thing. And
Yeah.
then if you connect with them, that solidifies it to you
Well,
that it's true.
we've talked about that here before. I think more than that now, the algorithm will try to show you more of
Sure.
that content, right? And so you really
Absolutely.
will be in your own world. People are in their own bubbles, not just based on whom they choose to associate with or
Right.
right their circles or the neighbors, but also because if they start engaging with certain kinds of content, the algorithm will show them more of that. And right, someone else who's looking at something else, a different kind of content, will get more of that. And before you know it, their minds are just programmed to think completely differently and see the world right through a completely different lens. And that really is, I think, a big part of the problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I I pull up my YouTube these days, and there's always a Memphis Bleak short
Memphis
on the
Bleak.
front
Now
page.
that's very specific, Jay. Were you watching some Bleak stuff? Like, how's that happening?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of Memphis Bleak interviews, and or short clips, and now every time I go to YouTube, it's like here's all the Memphis Bleak interviews. Yeah.
Oh my
So,
goodness. I'm a ball
but
till I
that's how the
fall. What you think of
algorithms
that?
work.
By the way, and now we're going to get really off topic, but you've seen the Bleak interviews. Don't you agree that it's preposterous that he is now saying that Nas was not dissing him? Nas was absolutely dissing him.
I don't know.
The Memphis Bleak hook was I'm a ball till I fall. Think of it just in hip hop terms, right? Bar wise. The Memphis Bleak hook was I'm a ball till I fall. What you think of that? Then Nas comes out with a single, Nostradamus, and he's got a line, you want a ball till you fall? I can help you with that. You mean to tell me that those are not related at all, even though there was already lingering tension between Jay-Z and Nas for years? Come on.
Yeah, I
Come
think
on.
yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. No,
All right.
I don't believe that.
I don't believe that for a second. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know what Bleak is trying to say there. I don't know. Clearly, he was talking about you. But anyway, when I'm on my reels now, I just see clips from the Joe and Jada podcast. I guess I've watched too many of those.
Yes, it's Bleak and Joe and Jada, like and Dame Dash. That's all I get.
I don't get those. Maybe luckily. All right, let's look
Yeah.
at one more of these because if you scroll down further on the page here on Politico, you see an excerpt from another chat.
Right. Now, so I just wanted to point out that
Yeah.
there seemed to also have been, at least quoted in this political article, that some of the members even talked about Trump. Um, so they were just, no one was spared here, right? So in this section here, they're talking about, they spoke freely about the pressure to cow to Trump to
Mm.
avoid being called a Republican in name only. They talked about the love of Nazis within their party's right wing, and they talked about Trump trying to suppress the Epstein files. So the Alex Dwyer, the chair of the Kansas Young Republicans, posted, "Trump's too busy burning the Epstein files." So,
Now, some of that could be intended as satire, right? Like, again, this is why context matters.
sure.
Not to sound like an apologist here, but I'm just trying to find the nuance in some of this. Like, I
Right.
can picture, let's say a Democratic group chat during the Obama times, and what was the knock on Obama? I guess we just said birtherism, right? I can see someone saying, like, joking that way about Obama, right? Even in a Democratic chat, like, oh, we want Obama to help us with this, but he's too busy trying to hide his birth certificate. Ha ha ha. I can see some silly stuff like that happening.
Yeah, context would help for
Yeah,
that. Like,
yeah,
yeah, was he meaning it that way, or were they really, yeah, there has been a little bit of a split, seemingly in MAGA, with people upset that the Epstein files haven't been released.
yeah.
So we don't know if that's whatever that chat
Or
is.
or they could be making fun of this like, obsession, right? This national obsession with the Epstein files, right? Like it's like people used to say "Thank you, Obama" sarcastically about everything. Like it could be one of
Right.
those, right? Kind of just like poking fun at the whole cultural phenomenon in a way.
You know, just on that, and it's a little bit of a tangent there, but I was thinking about that this morning about how I forget who it was just talking about how Speaker Johnson is they're saying Speaker Johnson's covering up for pedophiles. This whole thing is to cover up for the release of the Epstein files. That's why they haven't sworn in the member from Arizona yet. And it's just I'm starting to think that although absolutely the pressure should be put on and stayed on as far as releasing the Epstein files, I think people need to also consider that the Epstein files are not one big unalterable thing. So when they do get released, that doesn't mean they're actually the real files. They could very clearly have been rewritten and released so that it fits the narrative that the administration wants. So pinning all hopes on the release of the Epstein files to me is misguided.
Absolutely, yeah. That's just one of those things. Like I said, it's become a cultural phenomenon, and
Right.
yeah,
And
it
I think
reminds
this
me of
is,
like the was it like the Area 51, they call that back in the day. Like, oh, the president has all these like extraterrestrial secrets that if only we can expose that, we would have a whole wealth of knowledge about. Like it would just
yeah, but
change
that's true though. That's
everything.
absolutely true
But there's
though.
been a lot of stuff like that, right? Like it's like I said, like the they in the sky, right? Like the mythical thing that's floating around. It's really
Right.
the Illuminati it just kind of reminds me of that kind of thing, right? Like there's some kind of secret society that if only we can uncover it, we'll learn all of the world's secrets and everything will be good.
Right. And I think this as much time as it is taking here, and even though the what was it? I think there's the independent review or whatever that went through them and has cited that Trump is in them. But at this point, all this time that's being taken, it would not be out of the range of possibility that he's having them scrubbed and rewritten so he's not included in there, and then they will release those.
Could be.
And so I think pinning all hopes on the Epstein files, while
Yeah,
I
no,
understand,
no.
yeah, I understand like it's the hot button issue, but it could really backfire if they're released and there's nothing in there after they've
And I
scrubbed it.
think,
And they can be
yeah,
like, see, look, they wasted all our time and money on this.
and
Look, there's
people,
nothing
yeah, no, I
there.
know, absolutely. I think it's a distraction. People will also act like anyone who's named in there will spontaneously combust if it gets out, like
Right.
right.
Yeah.
No, all right.
I think
Uh,
they're gonna put what was it? Someone today just and I forget who it was, but they said that, oh, we went through the Epstein files and Trump's not in there. Actually, Bill Clinton had more of a relationship with Epstein than Trump. It's in there. Like, this is what I'm thinking.
so there's one more here. If you scroll down, and this just looks like a tasteless joke, honestly. The one where there's a message saying he did say my delegates I bring will vote for the most right wing person, and the response is great. I love Hitler, and someone's laughing about that. That
Right.
seems like I mean, I don't know. Again, context. I don't know who's saying it. It seems like it.
Context matters.
Yeah, it might be a
But
bit of sarcasm, right? A little bit of hyperbole in a sense, right? Or maybe even self-aware satire, right? Like the people, because they're aware that people are calling right wingers Nazis. You even said somewhere else in there they were complaining about right wing uh, flirtation with Nazism, right?
right.
So this could be a callback to that, right? Like, who knows? Still, I guess no matter how it was intended, it's a bit tasteless to be talking this way in a chat of leaders, supposed leaders, right?
It's quite tasteless.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's something that needs to be taken seriously. Like we can look at it and say, oh, well, of course the context, we can say, oh, well, they're just joking, or maybe it's some dark humor, maybe it's a mix. But I think it's something that we need to really, really take seriously because um look at where we're at now. We've not taken seriously a lot of things, even some of the stuff, things that Trump said, like right when he was candidate Trump and talking about, oh yeah, Project 2024. I don't know anything about it. He's about 80% complete on this stuff now. I think we need to take these things seriously. These people are future leaders in the Republican Party. They're probably, some of them are probably future elected officials. We need to take these types of threats seriously. We're
Oh,
looking
and
at the
at least one of them is a sitting elected official, like you
right.
pointed out. Yeah.
We're looking at further gutting of the Voting Rights Act,
Mm,
right? We're looking at them trying to make sure that they can gerrymander away some estimates, 20 to 30 seats away from anyone else and add it to the Republican Party. Like, yeah, these are things that we need to really take seriously, even if it's uh, tongue in cheek in some of the chats.
yeah. Yeah.
There
No,
was one point in here I wanted to
no, I
bring
agree.
up, though.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you there. So in the article, this wasn't a direct quote, but I read it earlier. But the article says the group chat members spoke freely about the pressure to cow to Trump to avoid being called a Republican in name only. What
Right.
do you
No.
think about that? That this is a young Republican group, and they're speaking about the pressure to
Yeah.
cow to Trump.
Well, it's funny because we have talked about it seems like in elections, and maybe this is why Republicans have been more successful than Democrats overall in recent years. It seems like in elections, Republicans tend to get on the same page,
Yeah,
whereas Democrats are very splintered, right?
right,
And sometimes they stubbornly so, right? They won't get behind
right.
the nominee. While it seems that way with Republicans, something like this is a little revealing because it may show that deep down,
Mm.
many don't quite subscribe to that. Maybe they know that they need to do that outwardly for the sake of advancing the party's interests or what have you, right? But it shows at least some dissension within the ranks.
Right. Yeah. And it reminds me of like how Trump kind of took the party in the first place. Because I mean, originally the party didn't like him. They mocked him. They didn't want
Yeah,
him in. But his cult just kind of overtook it and made it so that if they did go against him, that he could just split the vote everywhere and they'd never win anything. So they kind of reluctantly accepted him. Now some of his followers have gotten into elected office, and so now there's more of them permeating the party itself, and so that older party's not really there. But you know, even then, like in the beginning, I think there was probably that pressure to support him, even in the reelection. Because what was it? Even in this campaign that he just won, at the beginning of it, even Mitch McConnell was
mm-hmm.
talking about he shouldn't be back in office at
Liability. Yeah,
first.
yeah,
Yeah, at first. And I think it's just they just kind of lost because that pressure was too great that they had to capitulate,
right.
or they would just lose, seats in Congress or around the country or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking about that. Right. I think more than anything, they're afraid of losing in their own primary, right?
Yeah. But there
Because
and
it seems like the voters will, for the most part, vote Republican in the general election in November. But the problem is, if they don't toe that line all the time, they may be primaried by someone further to the right of them or someone who's more supportive of Trump than they are.
right. And yeah, so I think there could be a faction this in inside the party and even in the young Republicans or whatnot that feels like they're pointing out here the pressure to get on board regardless if they
Yeah,
completely agree
yeah,
with him or
yeah.
not.
And I think that's consistent with what we've seen, not just with young Republicans, right? Members of Congress have said
Sure.
that privately they don't like what's going on, but publicly they just got to say it because they're afraid, or they think
Yeah.
it's what they consider the greater good or whatever. Yeah, I think that's something that we've seen. Let me ask you
Grow
this.
a sack. Grow a sack. Say
Yeah,
something. Stand up.
let me ask you this. Do you think there's a level of inappropriateness when it comes to reading people's private messages? Is it like opening someone's mail, for example?
Um, yeah, I think it could be. Um, I think when people are having private conversations with their friends, then there may be a type of language used that's not used in public.
Mm-hmm.
Inside jokes, sarcasm, dark humor, I think that's very normal. So, reading into those messages without the context, not only of the conversation, but of the relationship and of the personalities and how they interact, can make some things be misinterpreted. The issue here, I think, is that these are, political groups. And even like you said, at least one of them was an elected official.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes where there's an issue, I think.
So it seems maybe that people in this group got too comfortable because they were treating it like a private chat with their friends and kind of just messing around. But a lot of people were in this group, and like you said, it was a political group, and so it really was maybe more public or quasi-public than they thought it would be, or they were maybe not thought it would be because they did say if this gets out, we're cooked. So they had some awareness of it, but maybe just because of how it is, like like it looks like a group chat with friends, and people just get comfortable, and so they just say whatever, not thinking about the consequences.
Well, I think if it were a private group with people they all actually knew like that, then you might have a little bit more of an argument that way. I think in this situation, there were, I think there were something like several thousand people in
Mm-hmm.
this chat.
Well, I don't know about. I think there were thousands of messages. I don't know how many people were in there.
Um, I thought I saw a number in here, but let's see, Young Republican National Federation. Oh no, that was just the organization itself. Okay. Um, yeah, so I think with so many different people from around the country in the chat, instead of saying that this was an inside joke between like friends, I think it
Mm-hmm.
just showed that this was the environment of the chat, the atmosphere of the chat. So
Yeah,
that changes it a little bit, I think. Then
yeah, I
it's not the
agree.
same.
I agree. But to me, it's an interesting thought experiment, right? Like, where do we draw the line, especially in today's age of technology and right things like Telegram chats, group chats like this, which can be
Yeah.
very big and have a lot of people in them, and be used for more than just making plans with your friends or joking with your friends, right? But planning like political endeavors. So, but
Yeah.
I guess at what point does it become culturally inappropriate to expose a chat like this, right? Like how many people have to be in it? How big does it have to be? What does the purpose have to be? You know what I mean? Like, how would you draw those parameters? Because I think we seem to be suggesting if it was just a private chat amongst friends, let's say, 3 or 4 friends goofing around, then it wouldn't be as right to expose that in a political article, right?
I'm not saying it wouldn't be right to expose it. I'm saying that you know it would seem like it would be their private things there. Like
Well, that's what I
you
mean.
got to remember
Maybe, yeah.
whoever exposed it was one of them.
Right. It just doesn't look like this was a hacker who came in from the outside, right?
Right,
This was someone on
right.
the inside, right? And that also maybe further shows the dissension amongst the ranks, right? Some
Yeah, so
people
maybe
are like,
someone in there was like,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
this is a little bit too far. Like
right.
this is
Or if not that, right? If you want to take a more cynical line, someone in there at least was hoping to get someone else in trouble who was in there.
sure.
you
Sure.
know,
No,
so
absolutely.
it wasn't all right. It wasn't all that they were all getting along and being happy together, right? There was someone who was seeking the smoke here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, yeah, so I think, this language should be taken seriously and
Yeah, absolutely. I just wonder, like, are private messages private, and what makes it no longer a private message?
when it's put out in the public, when it's exposed to the
It was
public.
exposed, right? But how would you feel if someone exposed your private chats or anyone's private chats? I
Oh,
mean,
sure. I
at,
would hate
at a
it.
certain point, right? At a certain point, it's like, well, okay, it doesn't mean they should have said whatever they said, but is it right to be doing that? Right? Is it right to be putting out people's private stuff out there?
Oh, I would if it was my private chats exposed, no, I would of course not like it.
Yeah,
Um, but once it's out there, you're obviously going to be judged on what was said.
sure, sure. But from a cultural perspective, don't we have to kind of define, or at least I guess discuss? We don't have to have the answers to everything, but think about where we would draw the lines of what's appropriate. I mean, even from like a Seinfeldian point of view, right? Like, what is the bounds of polite society here in a case like this?
What do you mean as far as the content of the chat or just the leaking of it
The leaking of it, just the leaking in particular, not of this chat. I'm just, just generally
in
speaking,
general?
right? The leaking of, yeah, of a chat, right? And
I think
exposing a chat. Is it
generally
always?
it's frowned upon, right?
I
Generally it's frowned upon.
I think so, but no one seems to be frowning upon this
Well, I think it's because of the content,
because of the
right?
content.
So
Well,
for example, if you had had the leaked chat of the 9/11 terrorists, I'm sure up
mm,
until that point,
right.
when they're planning everything back and forth, and someone caught that and leaked it, no one's gonna look at it and be like, "Oh, you shouldn't have been invading their privacy." They're gonna be like, "Oh
No,
my God, look what they were
right.
planning."
For a few reasons, right? Number one, very newsworthy, right? Number two, you're talking about
Dangerous.
dangerous. Number three, criminal activity, right?
Sure.
So that's, I
Sure.
think, a little bit different from dirty jokes.
But is it are they all dirty jokes? Like, does it not show uh,
Yeah,
a mentality, right? It
sure. No,
shows an
absolutely.
atmosphere. It shows
I agree with you on the content. I agree with you on the content, but I'm saying it isn't exposing a crime, no. So I think it's still a little bit different.
right,
Maybe this is more newsworthy because it is so-called high-ranking political figures or leaders, right? It's a political thing. It isn't just
right,
some random people on the street making stupid jokes, right? It's this
right,
that makes it more newsworthy, right? The fact that it's a Republicans club, if it would have been a Democratic
right.
club, same kind of thing. So yeah, I agree with that point of it. I guess the more newsworthy it is, the more likely we are to accept the leakage, right? But I don't know. Do we need to come up with a rule as a society as to what kind of message is subject to this, right? Like if it was, for example, let's say this wasn't a Telegram chat with a lot of people in it, thousands of messages. Let's say it was just two people in there in a private text message back and forth. Would that be
Yeah, I think it
perceived
might be different.
differently? Would that be perceived differently by the public? Would more people be like, "Hey, wait a minute, why are you exposing private text messages here?"
I think I think there'd probably be more of a case for that, more of a sympathy for that in
Mm-hmm.
that situation. But I think the if the content was still the same,
Yeah,
it would still be scrutinized.
yeah.
And let me give you another example that I think kind of adds to why this makes it more relevant to be scrutinized. In the chat, that guy Giunta, and I think he's the guy that runs it.
Mm-hmm.
He told the Republicans in there that he spoke with the White House about an endorsement for
Mm-hmm.
Trump for his bid to become chairman of the National Federation.
Mm-hmm.
This is not some guy off the street. There's connections here with
Sure.
the administration, and so leading
So
this
see,
kind of
even
chat or
yes,
participating,
okay.
that's serious. Now, ultimately, to be fair, ultimately Trump and the RNC decided to stay neutral on that race
Right.
he was in. But the fact that he has that line with them, you
Right.
know, and talks like this in this type of environment is something to be concerned about.
I agree, but is it still not somewhat intended to be private and not exposed to the public? For example, if we had a campaign chat going where we talked
Sure.
about meeting with a certain elected official about possibly getting their endorsement, right?
Yeah, sure.
And that were leaked. And it was like, well, wait, it's newsworthy. Scala's talking about getting such and such endorsements. People have a right
Right.
to know. Wouldn't we still feel like, wait a minute, that was our private chat? That
Sure.
wasn't an endorsement that we announced, that we put out, wasn't a press release. You took our private chat about political strategy that we're having and you're putting it out there because it's newsworthy. But aren't you also kind of betraying some kind of trust here? Maybe if not legally, right? Because maybe it was legally obtained or whatever. Maybe if not legally, culturally, are we not going to shun that type of thing?
Um, I I think generally people agree that you don't expose people's private chats, but I don't think there's going to be any
Until you
grandstand
do,
moment
until
here.
you do expose them, and then it's cool. I mean, where
I
would you
don't
go to?
no, I'm just saying that I don't think
Yeah,
people are going to grandstand any moment any point on this saying like, they shouldn't have leaked these people's chats. I don't think anyone's going to stand up on that hill.
because why? Because of all the factors that we mentioned
Right.
combined. Okay,
Yeah. And
so
and then too, let's be even more fair on that point. We are also so used to being in people's private business.
right,
Now
right,
let's take it out of this Republican
yeah,
group political thing. What if this was a leaked chat between Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie and they
mm-hmm.
published it? No one's gonna
or
really be calling privacy violations. They're gonna be looking at the
well,
juicy gossip.
or Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, right?
Right. They're gonna be looking at the juicy gossip because we're
I
so
don't know
used
though.
to being in it.
I disagree though. Yes, they're gonna want to know what the gossip is, but then you're gonna have
Yeah.
your sympathizers. Like if it makes Brad Pitt look
Yeah.
bad, his fans are gonna be like, whoa, why are they leaking Brad's messages? That's not right.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone's gonna stop. People are gonna read it. They're gonna
They're gonna read
watch
it. Oh
the
yeah, they're not
stuff,
gonna turn
uh,
away. Yeah, absolutely.
and we're used because we're used to it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We're used to being in the middle of people's business like that. So while
Well,
I think
social media, right?
generally,
Now we expect to have access to everyone all the time.
yeah, I think so. While generally we all agree that our private messages should remain private, that if they get leaked, no one's gonna, not a significant portion of people are gonna stand up and say, "Hey, you shouldn't have done that."
Yeah.
They're gonna read them and say, and they might say, "Yeah, that was kind of messed up that they leaked it, but God, did you see what it said?"
Right. Right.
You know?
Right. The content, especially if it's juicy content, that
Right.
the headline, right? Not the process.
Right. And I think that the importance of it will depend on whatever the content was, right? So in this case, we're talking about, demeaning and racist messages, attacking all sorts of people from people who are connected politically or politically active. So that makes it more newsworthy and more, more of a talking point versus if it was, you know, Brad and Angelina's conversation and they're talking about who's
Mm-hmm.
picking up the kids or
Mm-hmm.
what they like in bed. You know, I think
Right.
there's a little bit
Right.
difference, but there's some
If people
connection
can
there.
relate to the content more, they might be more protective of the privacy concerns, right? Like if it's a
That could be as
conversation that
well.
they've had, right? Like you said, like something about what's going on in the bedroom, someone might
Right.
be like, "Ooh, that shouldn't be out there," because they're thinking about their own life and how they wouldn't like it if their conversations were out there that way, right? But when it's something that
Right.
they're not involved in, like like a Republicans group chat talking about Nazis, that's so foreign to a lot of people, they're not protective of the privacy aspects of that because they don't feel like that will ever get out there with their own messages because they're not talking that way. They're not involved in those groups.
Right. Well, think about, the sex tape, the leaks of sex tapes of celebrities. Like
Mm-hmm.
how many of the people who leak them do we actually know? Or do you know more about the tape itself and the content of it? Right? Matter of fact,
Isn't
the
it often? Isn't it usually the celebrity himself or herself who leaks it?
Not necessarily.
No,
Not necessarily. That's how it happens. Someone can get a hold of the tape and slide it out.
could be.
And now, no one took the stand to say we shouldn't do that. They're all out there. You could search any sex
They're
tape.
out there, but I still feel like there are going to be people. and I haven't really researched this that much, but my hunch tells me you'll be able to find people saying that that shouldn't have been leaked.
You can find people who say that shouldn't have been leaked, but
Yeah,
that's not going to prevent them for people to from continuing to
to do it.
spread
Yeah,
it.
I agree. I agree, especially if they
Right.
can make money or whatever. And
Right.
the
I think what was
whole
the first one was the R. Kelly one that we kind of think about in this leak air sex tape era. The
but
first
that
one.
that's a different kind of leaking though.
I see what
So
you did there. But
what they used to say is you don't want to say anything or write anything, especially that you wouldn't want to then read as a New York Times headline.
right.
So I guess that's really the message here too, right? Even if you
Right.
think it's a private conversation, be careful what you say because someone might be trying to leak it.
Absolutely.
All right, we can't spend all night on this. We do
Right,
want,
right.
yeah, we do want to put a poll out. And the poll question of the week is: did the contents of the leaked messages in the Young Republicans group chat shock you?
Okay, cool. And so we had two polls from the last 2 weeks that we can briefly go over. What are we looking at here on time? Oh,
We're blowing past our time as usual, but that's okay.
we generally get into these conversations. I think we're probably looking at somewhere about an at least an hour right now. So I think we got a little bit of time here.
Okay, let's go.
So okay, the poll question we put together was, and I don't remember which one was first, but let's look at this. Do you agree that lobbyists should be banned from making political contributions? That was the poll that we put out, and this was kind of off of the conversation about a New York City Council candidate who, no, I'm sorry. This was about the ethics committee looking
Mm-hmm.
to do some curbing on campaign finance. And one of the suggestions in there was even banning them from participating. And so our results here, do you agree that they should be banned? 93% said yes, that they
Okay, I
should
was
be
gonna
banned from making
wager.
political contributions.
I was gonna wager a guess. I would have said the majority would say yes. I would not have guessed 93 on that one. I probably would have been in the 80s somewhere.
93 is pretty high.
Pretty strong.
Yeah. So someone said yes, 100% yes. As long as, quote, donations are made, nothing will ever change.
From anyone?
Um,
Or from
that's what.
lobbyists? Yeah.
So here's an interesting one here. Um, this commenter says, my brother worked for a tobacco company who suggested, quote, its employees make a $200 donation to a certain candidate who was
Ooh.
working on some advantageous legislation for them. He, being new on the job, thought, yeah, no way I'm giving my money to some guy in another state. Miraculously, a month later, all employees got a $200 bonus.
Except him?
No, all
Okay.
employees got a $200 bonus.
I
So
mean, do you know if that bonus was related to the contribution? Were they
you
$200
don't
contributions?
you don't know whether that it was related, but if the company is pushing them
Right.
to donate
That's the problem right
$200
there.
and then the
Yeah.
company gives
The
them
bonus,
$200,
okay, but the bonus could be coincidental. Maybe they get bonuses every year. I don't know. Again, context, I don't know. Right.
yeah, but I think
They're
it
implying
does.
it's tied to the donation. It could be a million different things.
Yeah,
But
but it's also a way to get around the company's donation limits.
I understand. So, in other words, the people are suggested to give the money, and it's not the company giving the money, it's the people giving the money, but then the company gives them the money back.
Right. And
Yeah.
he finishes off saying, I think all people should be able to donate, but corporations via their lobbyists or other means should be held strictly to a limit. And if a corporation is legally considered a person, then the limit of $3,500 should apply to them as well.
Mm. And we know that in many elections, like for example, here in New York City, corporations cannot contribute to campaigns.
Well, that's good. They shouldn't be. I
But
don't
we're not talking
think.
about corporations, now we're talking about lobbyists.
Right. Right. Well, yeah. But yeah. So, let's see what else we got here. If we cannot ban them, a cap should be established as to how much the lobbyists and the firm they work for can give. That's one thing we didn't consider the last time.
Well, we kind of did because I talked about how if you're doing business with the city, here in New York, you cannot get your contributions matched, right? We have an 8-to-1 matching
Mm,
fund
right,
system. And I
right,
suggested maybe you do something like that with lobbyists. I think it's not really a far cry, right? If you already
right.
say, if you have business before the city, your contribution is not eligible for matching funds, why not say, hey, if you're lobbying, your contribution is not eligible for matching funds? It would seem to be kind of in the same or a similar type of category.
Right. You know what? I wonder though, like, would this even be effective? And I say that because ultimately the lobbyist is lobbying on behalf of someone else. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
banning the lobbyists themselves from making political contributions, you're really only banning maybe one person, right? It doesn't really fix the issue of the influence and the interest who's hired the lobbyist
Sure.
from exerting monetary influence. You know what I mean?
Right. No, absolutely. Although I guess the presumption here is that that lobbyist is going to be the one who's then going to seek to meet with the elected officials once they get into office for them
Yeah.
to push those initiatives forward, right? That they are hired to support.
Right.
But you're right.
Yeah.
The lobbyist giving money on their own personal behalf, on their own personal time, that's separate from that industry, right? Or that company giving money.
Right. And that's ultimately who we want to curb because they're the ones putting, extra money into campaigns or candidates' pockets.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it
but we
kind of
kind of do. The thing is this, we kind of do curb it, right? Like we said, in New York, for example, corporations cannot, but then there are ways around it which
right,
are set by the Supreme Court. And so, if you wanted to curb that, you would need either a constitutional amendment or the Supreme Court to change course, right? Like, for example, PAC money coming in, unlimited money being used as independent expenditures, right? That's a way to get around it in a sense, because, all right, they're not directly contributing to campaigns, but if the Supreme Court says your money is speech, then you can spend $1 billion if you want,
right,
right? Saying whatever you want. You can put commercials on TV saying don't vote for this person. You could, they're saying it's not the same as a campaign contribution, but it effectively is, right? You're campaigning
right,
for that person, so there's nothing you could do legally, right? New York City couldn't pass a law to stop that because that comes from the Supreme Court. They're saying that that is considered your free speech.
right. I think we're probably in agreement that we took a huge step back in this ethics issue regarding campaign finance with the Citizens United
Yeah, yeah,
decision
and
and
that's
allowing
15 years ago, right? 15
yeah
years. Yeah.
yeah allowing these companies to be seen as people. Do you think, just to kind of an aside, do you think that decision influenced any sort of way of where we're at now with this billionaire class that's kind of taken over the government at this point?
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah,
pretty much everyone in Trump's administration are billionaires.
and they're buying elections. Yeah.
Right.
I,
Do you think Citizens United kind of helped
yeah.
in that regard? And I'm not saying
Yeah.
it completely
Right.
paved the way, because you could probably still do what Trump is doing even without Citizens United by just putting those people in his administration, but
Mhm.
it did make things a little bit friendlier for big money.
Absolutely. The influence of big money in politics. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. No question.
One person down here says, I believe that such a law, talking about banning lobbyists from donating, I believe such a law would be ruled unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has ruled that campaign contributions are protected under the First Amendment. See Citizens United.
And that's what we talked about last week as well, that there's a balancing act here, right? Because lobbyists are
Right,
people. And if you put restrictions on them donating money, you are in some way limiting their ability to involve themselves in a democratic process, right? And giving
right,
money is a way that we do that. You don't have to give money to support a candidate, but that's one of the main ways that you do. And so you
right.
would be limiting ultimately a person's ability to engage with the process. And so it doesn't mean that it's impossible to do that, right? Or outright unconstitutional, but there are, I think, heavy constitutional concerns that you would have to keep in mind, especially in light of cases like Citizens United.
Right, right. And then I guess the last one here is someone just said lobbyists should just be banned altogether. Let Mr. Exxon come talk to their duly elected representatives.
Mm. So
Now,
you should be able to hire somebody.
you shouldn't be able to hire someone to do that. What do you think about that?
That sounds pretty stupid to me.
Why? Why do you think it sounds pretty stupid?
What they're saying is that a company shouldn't be able to have employees, basically.
Yeah, but this, if you want to lobby the government for something, then you should have to do it yourself
Then
or
they
a
are the
direct
lobbyists.
interest.
But then they become the lobbyists. What is the difference? Then they're the lobbyists.
Maybe I guess they're looking at not hiring someone to do it on your behalf.
I
I mean,
don't,
does it
right, I don't
matter
see how that
though?
makes, yeah, no, I don't see. In fact, that actually might make it worse because, like we said, now these are just employees. That was your point earlier, right? This is just a person. It isn't like, the industry, the head of the company doing it. It's just someone
Right.
who's hired, paying, money as a private citizen, kind of, right? There are some implications there, but that's, I think, a little bit more benign than saying, no, the oil executive should go and do it himself. Whoa, now you're really meddling with the process.
But do you think these lobbying groups, because they take on multiple clients, and as such, representing multiple clients, multiple interests, they have a measure of power themselves because of their own network that could help influence politicians, um, one way or the other, because they're like, well, look, I represent all of these people, and
Yeah.
so,
And by the way, who's to say that they're not doing that already?
you're right. But I'm just saying, like, does that give them some measure of influence themselves, even aside from whatever they're being hired to do?
You mean the lobbyist or the
The
executive?
lobbyists.
Does the
Because a
lobby?
lot, so here's the
Yeah,
lobbyist. Say the
right.
lobbyist represents
Yeah,
Exxon, they
yeah.
represent big tech, right? So
That's a really good point.
they've
That's a
got
good
all of
point.
these people they represent that have money and they donate, and they
Mm-hmm.
go to the
Yep,
politician and say, "Listen,
yep,
I'm trying to get this passed." Um, Basically, if you're not down with it, all these people,
yep.
even though they're not on the same ticket, all these people may want it. Their funds may dry up. So
I
the
think you.
lobbyists
Yeah, yeah.
themselves, because
They
of their
become
network and
powerful.
their client list,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think you hit it on the head there because a lot of these lobbyists are not independent contractors. They're sole proprietors, or they have their own
right,
company, right? They have their own.
right,
Sometimes they have their own business, and these entities that they're lobbying for are their
right,
clients. So it
right,
isn't necessarily like an employer-employee relationship where they just work for a
right,
company. They are the company. And right, like you said, their clients could include a casino, an oil company, all kinds of
right,
powerful businesses, businesses with a ton of money. And so, yeah, no, that effect is definitely there, right? Like if someone walks
right.
in the room and you know that they carry all this influence, yeah, I think people are more likely to take them seriously.
Right. When that lobbyist walks into the room, they don't walk in alone. Their client list walks in with them
Yeah,
basically,
yeah, yeah.
which gives them
I
pretty
won't say any
immense
names, but
amount of power.
I won't mention any names, but someone came to mind immediately in New York when you mentioned that. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
and that was my experience in Albany as well. You knew, like, when this guy came in and asked you to support something, that there were broader implications beyond just that subject because
Right.
of all their other clients, of all their other influence that they have. It's like, if you say no to this, it might affect like 20 other relationships.
Right. And I wonder if is that talked about enough?
Probably
What do you
not.
think? I think we kind of put the boogeyman on just the lobbyists and that point, but kind of miss that. Yeah, they've got this immense power because of that client list.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah.
So, all right. Well, that was what that poll result was. So 93% say the lobbyists should be banned from making political contributions.
Hmm.
All right. So
Let
let's
me
move
guess on
on.
the next one.
Yes. The next one. So our next poll was, are the advances in AI technology making you less trusting of political messaging? And this was kind of prompted from Republican running for New York City Council named Jonathan Rinaldi, who was posting a series of fake news stories and AI generated images claiming endorsements from people like Cuomo and Adams and even news organizations where everyone turned out, it seems everyone came out and was like, no, we didn't endorse this guy. Um, and with AI being so prevalent these days and video popping up, it's going to become more difficult to kind of distinguish between real and fake. So The poll was asking if the advances in AI are making you less trusting of political messaging. What do you think the percentage here
Ooh,
was?
are the advances in AI making less trusting? So clearly, I'm going to say most people said yes. The question is, what is my
What's your,
number? I
yeah,
think
what's your
it's,
number?
I think it's less than the other poll we did. I don't think it, because I think some people are going to be like, I'm the man. AI doesn't bother me. I could discern easily what's AI, what's not. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, no, you ain't fooling me, bro. I think you can get
Right.
some of that energy in there. You know what I mean? So I'm putting this at 86%.
96%.
Ooh, okay. Wow.
96%. I think that's a pretty realistic, like you said, some people take that like I'm the man, I can see through it all, but with it being that high, I think
Yeah,
people are starting to realize how realistic some of this stuff is, and it's a little bit scary.
yeah, it is. And even taking the politics out of it, right? Sometimes I'll scroll through my reels now or shorts, and I'll see a video of a dog or an interaction of two animals or something like that. Or the popular one now is like a baby on a porch, and like the dog saves the baby from some attacking animal,
Right,
things
right,
like
right.
that, right. And you watch it, and at first you think it might be real, then you're like, oh, wait a minute, that's AI. But sometimes it's even hard to tell. Sometimes it doesn't say Sora on there, right? Sometimes you question it, like, is that real or not? You start looking at the comments, and you know what I mean. So it does trip you up sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, it's just the same thing over and over again where we are at this point, it's the worst it's ever going to be. So it's only going to get better and more difficult to distinguish. Um, we had VO3, Google's VO3 earlier this year that finally introduced this video and audio creation all together in one. But you could tell the way the audio was that there was a telltale sign there as well as some of the visuals. Then Sora came out, Sora 2 came out, and their audio is better. And
It
so
is.
it's
One
not
thing it
as
still does,
compressed.
and I want you guys to check out the 2 minute video, The Ballad of Joe Dubious, that I posted on my page. Uh, One thing it still does is it loves writing nonsense words on the screen.
Yeah.
If you notice
You
that.
have to
And I
tell
think
it
that's,
specifically not to do it.
yeah, but even if you do tell it not to, sometimes it still does. It drove me crazy when I was doing the news report segment of that video, right? Because at first I had the guy in a bar watching the news report on a TV screen, and it just had nonsense words like all over the screen. I guess it's supposed to be like background or something like that, but you can clearly see, like these words don't make any sense that you're putting on the screen. And I'm like, I don't want that in there. So I'll tell it
Right.
not to do that. And then it'll come out with something else. It might change maybe what I asked it to change, but I put something else in there that's wrong. And like it just wasn't getting it right. Like it seems like oftentimes when you have text
Right.
somewhere, it's going to put something wrong. And that's a
Right.
limitation that I'm sure will be corrected as the technology continues to improve. But right now, it is a limitation we still have with AI, and sometimes it's a way that you can tell that it is AI.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So the first comment on this is that I find trust difficult in all media now. And that's pretty sad state of affairs, because, it's always been thought that, media is, what they say, it's like the fourth thing of democracy or something like that.
Fourth branch of government.
Something like that. So, I mean, it's the way that we stay informed. And, I forget who it someone, one of the old news guys was saying that, we were able to do some of the incredible things that we've done is because the people were able to be informed. And now if people don't feel they can be informed properly, we lose a lot, I think.
Tupac reminds me of Tupac saying that the reason we were able to stop the Vietnam War was we were able to show people what was really going on over there, right?
Yeah.
And it informed our collective consciousness. Now there's no such thing, right? Because
Yeah.
we have these bubbles that half the people would see one thing, half the people would see something completely different, and we wouldn't be
Right.
able to find a consensus.
I think that also played a role in, the advancement of the civil rights struggle as well. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
one thing to say these things are happening, but then when you see news, especially foreign countries, seeing, people being attacked by water hoses and dogs, when they're peacefully protesting,
Right.
that's, it contextualizes it. George Floyd,
Absolutely.
we watched George Floyd die on camera when he was just, saying I can't breathe. Like I think that plays a
Yeah.
part.
That might be the last time that we really had consensus. When that happened, I saw people from all sides of the political aisle coming together for a moment saying, no, that was
Right.
wrong. Now,
Right.
I think even the extreme political, I can never say this word, politicalization, too many syllables, politicalization, right, that we have in our
Right.
society has gotten to that, right? Because there would be people coming on the other side of that and saying he deserved it or whatever. But when it happened, I saw a lot of consensus that things have gone too far.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's how, Rodney King was another one. It was the media.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we saw it. So,
Yeah.
if we can't trust the media, that's we're cooked, chat, as they say.
FR. That wasn't the, yeah, that wasn't the original thing, right? We're cooked FR.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's yeah. Um, so one more, another comment here said less trusting? Question mark. Nope, I never trusted any of it to begin with. It's all propaganda. AI only changes the method of production. The propaganda remains the same. I treat all political ads as if they were ads for male enhancement.
Yeah, see, I expected more people to be in that category when I guessed my number, and that's why I thought 14% would be like that guy.
I mean, I think there's two things that's being said there, right? So he's saying that he doesn't trust any of it at all, but he doesn't really address whether he's fooled by AI, and that's making him less trusting, right? He's just saying, I
He's
don't
saying
trust
he's
any,
got no trust to begin with.
he doesn't have any trust to begin with, you know? So, um, let's see. Last one here. This person says, nah, I've stuck to the mantra learned in childhood. Believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. Shout out to Jigga. Most of political AI is generated to be over the top, scandalous, unbelievable. And so, yeah, it's unbelievable. Um,
Well, that
you know,
clearly is not a Jay-Z line. That's something that people have been
no,
saying for generations.
no,
But
absolutely.
um, yeah, so now are we going to be able to believe even less than half of what we see?
Right. I think so. What was it that they put out recently? I don't know if it was the Trump administration, but it was certainly someone from the GOP put out something with Schumer
Right.
speaking on something.
Wasn't that part of this? I think I read it in the political article too.
It could have been, it meant,
Maybe it
yeah, it
was
was
made.
mentioned in there.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. And like we said,
and they make it
people will,
believable. You can make it
right.
believable.
Oh,
That's the
sure.
thing. It's
But then
not, this
people will
guy says
also,
scandalous, over the top, unbelievable, but
right.
you can
But
make it
people,
believable.
you can make it believable, but people will also then defend what they're doing as either satire or just an illustration, right? Like,
Right,
I didn't say that they actually said that. I wasn't suggesting that. I was just saying that, imagine what it would be like if they got elected. We can start seeing stuff like this happen. You never know. You know what I
right,
mean? Like,
right,
people can try to play it off like they weren't trying to fool you. They were just
right,
showing you by way of example what the world could be like.
right. So, all right. So there you have it.
There it is. Another successful episode. We thank you for the
Yes.
comments and the engagement as usual.
And
And
we are not AI yet.
not yet, no. And you know what? Here's a funny thing. I considered, although I was weighing the pros and cons of this, right? I considered creating an AI mic to make more of these videos, not nuance videos, but some more Sora type stuff. And then
Right,
I was like, maybe I shouldn't do that. I don't know. But then I saw it gave you the option of only keeping it for yourself and not letting other people use AI. But then I'm like, all right, but things can get leaked, right? As we see.
all
So
right.
anyway, I was kind of going back and forth on that. Interestingly, the
You can.
technology apparently is only supported by iOS, and
Right,
Android users cannot AI themselves yet. So what's
right,
up with that?
right. It's yeah, only iOS first, and
Yeah.
iOS only iOS 18 and above. So I'm on 17, so I can't do it either.
Hmm. So if we
Um,
see someone AIing themselves this way, we know they're using iOS 18 or above.
right.
Yeah. Or I can
Yeah,
borrow
and
some
it can only be done via the app. You can't do
someone's
it
phone and do it, I guess,
via
if I wanted to.
the web platform.
But I could borrow. Can I just borrow someone who has a new iPhone? and do
No,
then
because then it would reside in their account.
I can't log into my account using their phone.
Oh, yeah, you could probably do that. Sure.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah, and
mean.
then you get this because what you have to do is you get in there and you
And your
scan
face.
yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
So then it can be used, you can use it to create a bunch of videos with yourself, or you can
Right.
open it up to let other people
Other
use
people do
you.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all of it can be private. Like none of the things I've created are on my public feed. I keep everything in drafts. I don't post
Right.
any of it.
Right.
Yeah. So
All right.
be interesting to play with though.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, right? Like having me giving speeches, it put me in different scenarios. You can get very creative, very creative. One thing that I
Yeah.
started doing with it is if I have a dream or if I just have like think about things, I'll actually have it create what I saw in my dream or what I was thinking about. And then you can actually play it back. You can watch it. It's like bringing your dreams to life. That's really powerful.
Right. And I
Yeah.
noticed they've also I think they've upped the duration. So it was 10 seconds before, but now clips can be 15 seconds.
Mm.
I think
That is, yeah.
if you pay, you're on the payment plan, I think you can go up to 25 seconds.
That's the next frontier, right? Because the 2 minute movie I made, The Ballad of Joe Dubious, has short scenes because they
Yeah.
only allowed me to do short scenes. But if we want to do like a real series, like my boy was like, man, this could be an actual like series for real. I'm like, yeah, but I would need the ability to make longer scenes, not just have it switch up every 5 seconds, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can do 15 seconds now at the max. I think the biggest issue that we're kind of the next hurdle, one of the hurdles is the continuity issue. The character between scenes will be slightly different. It doesn't, but
Slightly.
that's
Yeah.
what that cameo feature deals with. If you scan in your face,
Mhm.
then every time it's you.
Right, but you could still get it pretty good now by using the remix feature because that's what I did. If I
Yeah.
created a video, I would like I would do the remix. I'd be like, now take that same character and change this
Yeah.
in a different situation, and then it would kind of adopt. It might get a little different, but it could be like
Yeah.
that character a couple years ago, depending on the context of your scene. So you might expect it to change a little bit, but yeah,
Right. You're remixing your own character. That makes
remixing the
sense.
character. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. See, now you're learning Sora 2 hacks on here. You know? So, and the another one I'll give another tip since you threw
Hmm.
out one.
Hmm.
If you're doing if you want to kind of avoid the Sora watermark, if you're releasing it like you released it in the portrait mode,
Vertical.
right? The
Yeah.
vertical,
Yeah.
create the video in landscape because the watermark tends to be on the left and the right, and then you
Mm.
display it in portrait, and so you don't really see it. So if you've noticed, I did a Sora 2 video on my Instagram, but there's no Sora watermark.
Oh wow! So I didn't even know that you could create it in landscape. I thought it had to be
Nope,
portrait.
you can create it. Look down there where you enter the prompt. On the right, there is a setting bar or a setting button where you can toggle to 20 to 15 seconds and change the landscape.
But then you're cropping, right? So are you losing quality by doing that, or does it give you a big enough quality, a big enough resolution file to work with?
It should be okay. It depends. I mean, you'd have to test it out to see if
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, give us a bottom line, Jay. I think I gave it last week.
You did give it last week. I think the bottom line here, for me at least, is that you know, there are people with dark humor, and in our private conversations, people do say a lot of crazy things. But especially given the times, we need to take these things seriously. Talking explicit and overtly racist
Mhm.
messages, Nazi propaganda, all of these things need to be very much taken seriously. And I don't think we have the luxury of looking at it as jokes like we might have had before, because there's such a growing trend for this stuff to become more and more normalized than it has already become. And that is a problem.
Yes, well said. Well said. Of course, people can find us wherever things can be found, right? Wherever you get your podcasts. We're on social media, we're on YouTube, Nuance with Mike Scala and Jay Carter. Please engage with us, continue to take part in these conversations. If there's a topic you would like us to cover, let us know. Right? We want to talk about things that you want to hear discussed and conversations you want to take part in. All right, it's all good. So let us know. As always, we've got work to do. We thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.